Times what people do is just sign over the title to the other individual. And all that does is just give them ownership, but it does not release the other person from the liability.
What can a consumer do? You know, we mentioned that you could be held liable even though the judge says it's not your debt. What can a consumer do to protect themselves from, say, credit card fraud? It's big in the news nowadays. You know, there's identity theft, things of that nature. What can you do to protect yourself?
Well, one is keep track of your credit report by going to, you could go to the annualcreditreports.com and get a copy of the free report, and also maybe one of the services that they have. They have services that will basically contact you by email or by phone or text and let you know when somebody is making an inquiry or somebody is accessing your credit report. So that would be something good to have, but of course they have a fee for that. Other things that you can do is be careful of the information that goes outside your house. Like in my personal situation, you know, mail comes in, you get information from banks, from stockbrokers, you know, all kinds of information that comes in with your name and address on it. And basically what I do is nothing goes out into the trash that has my name, address, or any personal information. I just rip that portion off and shred it, and then the rest of it just goes out in the trash or the recycle bin.
Have you ever yourself been subject to credit card fraud or any type of fraud?
Actually, I have. It's been
Really?
a long time ago. It's actually before I got into the mortgage industry, so we're talking over 25 years ago. But I was out in California and went to get a repair done on a car, and about 6 months later, I was contacted, and I live in Virginia, so about 6 months later, I was contacted by a bank in Chicago and was asking me if I had applied for an application from them. And they thought it was a little weird because they wanted the application to go to a P.O. box. And the P.O. box was out in California and I lived in Virginia. And I told them that I had never applied to them. I didn't even know the name of the bank. So they recommended that I pull my credit report, which I did. And I found out that there was already like 5 accounts that were opened,
Oh my gosh.
had been charged on, and one was already in a collection agency.
What did you do to, you know, try to get that removed? I hear horror stories and nightmares of consumers trying to get fraudulent or derogatory information removed off their credit report. What did you do?
Well, what I did is, and I kind of learned the hard way because this was back in the 80s, so it was a lot different than it is now. But what I did is you'd have to call the banks, call the institutions, and they want you to you know, provide the information that they're looking for. A lot of times it's a police report or something stolen, that your identity or information has been compromised. But also what happened, the one went to a collection agency. I would talk to the collection agency, then they say you have to talk to the bank to get this straightened out. So I'd call the bank, we'd get it all straightened out. And then I think what happens is the collection agency would send it back to the bank. I checked my credit report, it was clean, no problem. And then about 6 months later, I checked my credit report, it would be back on the credit report as a collection.
Gosh.
And I think what would happen, the only thing I can figure is that the file was just sitting around at the bank. Somebody pulled it up and looked at it and said, oh, this is supposed to be at the collection agency, and would send it back. That happened for like 2 years. I'd have to keep going back and forth about 3 or 4 times until it finally dropped off and it was no longer on there. The other thing I would recommend is if you're going through that, keep very detailed notes. Whoever you talk to and what the conversation was about. Because if there's any dispute or if you ever come up to have to go to court over it, they're going to look at those notes as what actually happened or transpired in the transaction. And you'll notice that a lot of companies now are keeping tape recordings of the conversation. So you just want to keep notes so they would match up if there was a recording on what happened during the conversation. And also if you want to try to get anything in writing. If they say, okay, we understand it's not your obligation, it's fraud, we'll clear it off your credit report, see if you can get it in writing. If you can get it in writing, and then you keep a file like that, and then if it does show up again, then you just zip off a copy of that letter, and it gets removed very quickly.
Would that information, you writing it down, hold up in a court of law? Would that be?
That's hard to say. I've seen some cases where the judge looked at those notes, and the judge took those notes as being what actually happened. But that was before companies were making recordings. I imagine if there was a dispute between an individual and a company had an actual recording of the conversation and somebody had notes.
That would take precedence.
Probably.
How long does negative or derogatory information stay on a credit report?
It can stay up to 10 years, depending on the type of information or the type of derogatory credit. Bankruptcies, foreclosures will usually stay on a credit report for 10 years. Judgments usually 2. As it gets less collections, those sort of things can stay on as long as 7 years. So even late payments will be on there for at least 7 years. So you want to do whatever you can to try to keep your payments on time and not pass that 30-day mark that we had.
What about an unpaid tax lien?
Oh boy, that'll show up on your credit report quickly, and a tax lien from a government agency will take precedent over anything else. So especially if it's the IRS, they're going to get their money
Right.
regardless. So, but if that shows up, a tax lien shows up, and you see it's there, address it as soon as you can. Even if you have to call, like say the IRS, and make payment arrangements, you want to address that, because if somebody sees that on there, that can affect all aspects of your life. It can affect your job, as far as you being able to get a new job. Might even affect your current job. If you have security clearances, it's certainly going to affect that. It could affect if you even move into a new place and you're trying to get utilities. It could affect what they're going to charge you. Your cell phone provider, insurance companies, everybody's going to look at that, and you may get hit with a little bit higher fees because of what's on your credit report.
How often would you say that a credit report is updated? How frequently do creditors contact the credit bureaus, the 3 major credit bureaus, to notify them of new information?
Generally speaking, they're going to report that once a month. And most of your major creditors will report it to all 3 of the credit reporting agencies. Usually by the 10th of the month, everybody has reported for that coming month. So if you're looking to pull your credit and you're trying to get something that's most current, I'd probably do it on like the 12th or the 15th of the month.
Okay. What can a consumer do? What are some of the actions that one can take to help improve their credit score, aside from opening up a credit card? What can a consumer do?
To try and improve the credit score?
No, to improve it, to make it go up.
To make the credit score go up? Well, one is, they want to keep track of the credit to make sure that all the accounts that are on their credit report are actually theirs. When they get that free copy, they want to verify all the information that's on there. Their name, make sure that sometimes there's a lot of aliases. It'll show up that you've applied for credit in different names. If you haven't, you want to address that. Past addresses, you want to find out what's on the credit report as far as past addresses, and want to make sure that's accurate. Past employment, you want to make sure that that information is accurate. Something as small as a middle initial being reported as being wrong can get you mixed up with somebody else. That happens to me with my middle initial. Mine is F and the person was E, and it got crossed in some databases, and I was getting speeding tickets and all kinds of notices. Yeah, so you got to be really careful and diligent. So once you get that credit report, you want to review it and make sure that everything is on there. First is yours, and second is accurate. And then as far as trying to increase your scores, time is the best healer pretty much of all things, especially on your credit. But you want to make sure that you continue to make your credit on time and reduce the balances as much as you can.
If a consumer takes your advice and they go to annualcreditreports.com and they pull their credit report, and they see something that may not be so kosher, they have a question about derogatory information, may not be theirs, do you have any type of documentation that you can give to a consumer, our viewers here, that could help them, a step-by-step instruction pattern, if you will, to help them remove derogatory or erroneous information off their credit report?
We do. We have information that we can provide that will tell you detailed information about your credit report and how you can go about removing things or disputing things that are on your credit report. You can get a lot of information right on that website, annualcreditreport.com, that will provide that information. And sometimes if it's something simple, you can get it done right there. If not, you can contact us, Jim at jim-perkins.com, or Mortgage Solutions website, and you can get that information. Just let us know that you're looking for it, we'll send it to you. Can
a consumer pull another consumer's credit report? Say a consumer is renting out a condo, renting out an apartment, whatever, he's a renter. Can that landlord pull a credit report on a regular consumer without the landlord being any type of business?
No, you have to be approved by the credit reporting agencies to be able to pull somebody else's credit. So you're going to have to go through, usually it's a pretty extensive application process in order to be able to get approved to be able to pull somebody else's credit report.
Do credit reports include aliases or old names?
Yeah, they'll include usually any type of credit that's been pulled with different names. In other words, if you apply for credit as, say, in my situation, J. Perkins, and then James Perkins, and then Jim Perkins, usually those will all show up on your credit report. So if you've applied for credit under those, then that's fine. They're just letting you know that.
Okay. Remember, if you would like to apply for mortgage loans or if you have any questions about credit reports or mortgages, please email us. Our emails will be listed on the screen below, or you can visit our website at markrigney.org. We will read some of your questions on our next show. On behalf of my friend and colleague Jim Perkins, thank you for watching Mortgage Solutions with Mark Rigney. We will see you next time.